Why is everyone being weird about my apartment? I was arranging the charcuterie board when I heard my brother Marcus call my apartment a sad little shoebox where dreams go to die. The words drifted through my bedroom door, which I'd left cracked open while his friends used my living room. My hands froze over the brie. This was supposed to be my housewarming party. I'd spent 3 weeks planning it, 2 paychecks on decorations and food, and countless hours scrubbing every surface of my new studio apartment until it gleamed. At 24, after 4 years of dorm rooms and cramped shared houses, this 450 square foot space in Capitol Hill was everything I'd dreamed of. Exposed brick walls, huge windows facing west, hardwood floors that creaked just right. The rent was $1,800 a month, steep from my nonprofit salary, but I'd made it work. Seriously though, came another voice I recognized as Tyler, Marcus's college roommate. It's like she's playing house in a closet. Did you see that kitchen? I've seen airplane bathrooms with more counter space. Laughter erupted from my living room. My living room, where I'd carefully arranged throw pillows and lit vanilla candles, where I'd hung string lights to make everything feel warm and magical. The best part, Marcus continued, his voice carrying that particular tone he got when he was performing for an audience, is how proud she is of this place. Like, genuinely proud. She gave me a full tour when I got here. Pointed out the original 1920s fixtures in the bathroom. I didn't have the heart to tell her those are just old and broken. More laughter. I recognize the voices now, Tyler, definitely. Probably James and Connor too, the whole crew Marcus had collected during his finance bro transformation. I pressed my back against my bedroom wall, my chest tight. You have to be nice though, right? This was a female voice I didn't know. I mean, she's your sister. Oh, I'm being nice, Marcus said. But come on. She's been out of college for 2 years and this is the best she can do. Working at some environmental nonprofit, making what, maybe $35K. Living in what's basically a converted storage unit. I just feel bad for her. The cheese knife slipped from my hand and clattered onto my dresser. I'd called Marcus the day I signed the lease, practically vibrating with excitement. He was the first person I wanted to tell. I'd FaceTimed him from the empty apartment, spinning around to show him everything, talking about my plans for the space. He'd seemed happy for me. Congratulated me. Said he was proud. The saddest part, Tyler added, is you can tell she thinks she's really made it. Like this is her big adult moment. Right? It's actually kind of tragic, Marcus replied. But hey, at least the wine is decent. She definitely spent money she doesn't have on this party. I had. The 3 bottles of Bordeaux had cost me $120 total, money I planned to spend on groceries. I'd wanted everything to be perfect for tonight. I stood there in my bedroom, my beautiful bedroom with its vintage mirror and the succulent garden I'd arranged on the windowsill, listening to my older brother systematically destroy every ounce of pride I'd felt about this place. These people were drinking my wine, eating my carefully curated snacks, standing on my restored hardwood floors, and treating it all like an elaborate joke. The worst part? Marcus had been my biggest supporter through college. When everyone else questioned my major, my career choice, my decision to prioritize purpose over salary, he'd always had my back. Or so I thought. I mean, she could have just stayed with mom and dad for another year and saved up for something actually decent, Marcus was saying when I forced myself to move back toward the door. I needed to hear this. All of it. Wait, your parents would have been cool with that, the unknown female voice asked. Mine kicked me out the second I graduated. Marcus laughed, and I could picture him running his hand through his hair the way he always did when he was about to lie. Yeah, well, they're pretty chill about stuff like that. Very supportive of taking time to figure things out. I almost snorted. Supportive? Mom had been dropping hints about my next steps since sophomore year, and Dad had literally circled apartment listings in the paper during my last semester. They'd made it crystal clear that college graduation came with an expiration date on my childhood bedroom. That's cool of them, James chimed in. Not everyone's parents are that understanding about the whole failure to launch thing. Totally, Marcus agreed. I think they just want us to be smart about our choices, you know. Not rush into some overpriced shoebox just to prove we're independent. My jaw dropped. Was he seriously lecturing about smart choices right now? Marcus, who'd bought a $60,000 BMW straight out of college and then had to sell it 8 months later when his startup crashed. Marcus, who'd blown through his trust fund by age 25 and had to come crawling back for family money to cover his losses. Speaking of smart choices, Tyler said, how's your place working out? That building in Belltown, right? There was a pause. A long one. In that silence, something clicked. Yeah, it's great, Marcus said finally. Really great. The view is incredible. But his voice had changed. Lost that performative confidence. And suddenly, I was remembering things. How he never invited anyone over. How he always suggested meeting at restaurants or bars. How cagey he got whenever anyone mentioned visiting his place. How he'd been doing laundry at mom and dad's house every Sunday for the past 6 months, claiming his building's machines were always broken. You should have people over sometime, the female voice suggested. I've been wanting to see it. Yeah, definitely, Marcus said quickly. Soon. I'm just renovating right now. It's a total mess. Another lie. I could hear it in his voice, the same way he used to sound when he told our parents he was studying at the library while actually getting drunk behind the grocery store in high school. Renovating what? Connor asked. Didn't you just move in like 8 months ago? Just updating some stuff. You know how it is. But they didn't know how it was, because Marcus was making it all up. And suddenly, I was remembering Mom mentioning that Marcus had been staying over more often lately, and how she bought extra groceries for when your brother visits. Visits that seemed to happen every single day. The conversation moved on to Tyler's new job, but I stayed frozen by my bedroom door, my mind racing. All those times Marcus had made comments about me living the real adult life while he was still figuring things out. All those occasions when he'd shown up at family dinners looking slightly rumpled, claiming he'd come straight from work when our parents' house was 20 minutes in the opposite direction from his office. Marcus wasn't living in some trendy Belltown high-rise. He was living in mom and dad's basement, mocking my tiny apartment while sleeping in his childhood twin bed surrounded by his high school soccer trophies. And apparently, none of his sophisticated finance friends had any idea. I needed air. I needed to process this. But mostly, I needed to get out of my bedroom before I did something stupid like burst through that door and expose Marcus right here, right now, in front of everyone. Instead, I grabbed my phone and slipped into my bathroom, the one with those broken 1920s fixtures that I actually loved. I locked the door and sat on the edge of my clawfoot tub, fingers shaking as I opened Instagram. There it was, Marcus's carefully curated feed. Photo after photo of him at trendy restaurants, craft cocktail bars, the Pike Place Market. Always tagged with locations, never with an address. Lots of Sunday brunch in a neighborhood posts, but when I looked closer, that neighborhood was always Capitol Hill or Fremont or Queen Anne, never Belltown, where he supposedly lived. I scrolled back 8 months, to when he claimed he'd moved into his amazing new place. The posts from that time were all generic city shots. The Space Needle at sunset. A coffee cup with no background visible. A selfie in what looked like a hotel lobby, captioned, Home Sweet Home, with a building emoji. My throat felt tight. I kept scrolling, looking for any photo actually taken inside his apartment. There weren't any. Not one single interior shot in 8 months of posts. Meanwhile, my Instagram from the past 3 weeks was full of photos of my space, my morning coffee on my tiny kitchen counter, my reading nook by the west-facing windows, my succulent collection. A knock on my bathroom door made me jump. Hey, you okay in there? It was Jess, my coworker from the nonprofit. One of the only people at this party who actually seemed to appreciate my apartment. Yeah, just checking something, I called back. Well, hurry up. That tall guy, is that your brother? He's telling everyone about some restaurant in Belltown that's supposedly in his building. Says we should all come check it out next weekend. My stomach dropped. Marcus was digging himself deeper, making plans he couldn't possibly keep. I'll be right out, I said. But I wasn't ready to face that room again. Not yet. Instead, I opened my text messages and scrolled to my conversation with Mom. 3 days ago, she'd sent me a photo of a lasagna with the caption, making Marcus's favorite since he's been working so hard lately. Yesterday, your brother forgot his good work shirts here again. I swear that boy would lose his head if it wasn't attached. I screenshotted both messages. Then I opened a new text to my cousin Riley, who was supposed to come to the party but had canceled last minute. Riley worked downtown, just a few blocks from Marcus's office. Me, quick question, have you ever seen Marcus around downtown after work? Like, heading toward Belltown? The response came back within minutes. Riley, actually no, now that you mention it. I've spotted him at the Westlake station a few times around 6 p.m., but he's always on the northbound platform. Isn't Belltown south? Why? Westlake northbound went directly to our parents' neighborhood. Me, just wondering. Thanks. I deleted the conversation thread. The voices in my living room were getting louder, more animated. Someone had put on music, my carefully chosen playlist, probably, and I could hear the clink of wine glasses. My wine glasses, the vintage set I'd found at an estate sale and hand-washed with dish soap because I couldn't afford the fancy stuff. Marcus was out there, drinking my wine, eating my food, standing in my apartment that I worked 60-hour weeks to afford, calling it pathetic while he secretly lived in our parents' basement like a teenager. But he wasn't just lying to me. He was lying to everyone, building this elaborate fiction about his successful adult life while mocking my actual independence. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and looked at myself in the mirror above my sink. My reflection looked determined. Marcus wanted to play games. Fine. But he'd forgotten something important. I'd always been better at strategy than him. And I had 3 weeks until Mom's birthday dinner to plan my next move. I took a deep breath and walked back into my living room, forcing a smile as I rejoined my own housewarming party. The conversation had shifted to weekend plans, and I watched Marcus hold court from my tiny love seat, gesticulating with my wine glass in his hand. So Marcus, Jess was saying, when are you going to have us over to your place? I keep hearing about this amazing Belltown apartment. Marcus's grip tightened on the wine glass. Oh, you know, soon. Like I said, I'm doing some work on it right now. Major renovation stuff. What kind of renovations? Tyler asked, genuinely curious. I thought those new buildings came pretty much move-in ready. Well, it's not exactly a new building, Marcus said quickly. It's got character. Needs some updating. I moved closer, pretending to refill the charcuterie board. That's so funny, Marcus. Last month you told me it was a brand new high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows. The room went quiet for a beat. Marcus shot me a look that could have frozen hell over. It's new to me, he said with a forced laugh. You know what I mean. Totally, I said, arranging crackers with surgical precision. By the way, Mom texted me earlier asking if you needed her to wash your work shirts again. Should I tell her you'll pick them up Sunday like always? Connor raised an eyebrow. Your mom does your laundry. Just sometimes, Marcus said, his voice tight. When I'm really busy with work. It's convenient since I visit them a lot. That's sweet, the unknown girl said. I'm Madison, by the way, she added, extending her hand to me. Marcus has told us so much about you. I shook her hand, noting the way she kept glancing between Marcus and me like she was picking up on some undercurrent. All good things, I hope. Oh definitely, Madison said. He mentioned you're really close. Said you talk almost every day. We do, I confirmed. In fact, Marcus calls me every morning around 7:30. Right around the time Mom starts making coffee. I paused, watching his face. You know how she is about her morning routine. Up at 7, coffee by 7:15, breakfast by 7:30. Very consistent. Marcus's jaw twitched. Our mom's always been an early riser. It's nice that you can catch up during your commute, I continued innocently. Though I guess your commute from Belltown isn't that long, right? Maybe 20 minutes. Something like that. Tyler pulled out his phone. Wait, what street are you on again? I'm thinking about looking at places down there. The panic in Marcus's eyes was almost imperceptible, but I caught it. Actually, you know what? I don't really like to broadcast my exact address. Security reasons. Smart, James nodded. Especially with all those break-ins lately. Break-ins? Madison asked, concerned. Marcus looked like he wanted to crawl under my coffee table. Just, you know. General city safety stuff. I decided to twist the knife a little deeper. Speaking of safety, remember when you had that scare last month? When you thought someone was trying to break into your place at like 2 a.m., but it turned out to be Dad getting a midnight snack? Dead silence. Wait, Tyler said slowly. Your dad was at your apartment at 2 a.m. Marcus's face had gone completely pale. He was visiting. Staying over. In Belltown. Connor looked confused. Doesn't he live in Maple Valley? That's like a 40-minute drive. We had an early morning thing. I could practically see Marcus's carefully constructed story crumbling in real time. Madison was frowning now, clearly trying to piece together why my dad would be staying overnight at Marcus's apartment and accidentally scaring him while getting snacks. That's so nice that your parents feel comfortable staying over, she said carefully. The place must be pretty spacious. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time in years, my eloquent, silver-tongued brother was completely speechless. You know what? I said brightly, I think we need more wine. Marcus, want to help me grab those bottles from the kitchen? He followed me into my tiny kitchen like a man walking to his execution. What the hell are you doing? He whispered once we were out of earshot. I turned to face him, my voice deadly quiet. Exactly what you've been doing to me for the past hour. How does it feel? Marcus stared at me, his face cycling through emotions, anger, panic, shame, and something that might have been respect. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I cut him off, my voice barely above a whisper. You've been living in Mom and Dad's basement for months, lying to everyone about having your own place, while simultaneously trashing my actual apartment to your friends. It's not that simple. Then explain it. I crossed my arms, blocking his path back to the living room. Explain why you think it's okay to call my home pathetic when you're sleeping in your childhood bedroom. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, that nervous tell he'd never outgrown. Look, the Belltown thing, it's temporary. I had some financial setbacks after the startup folded, okay? I'm getting back on my feet. For 8 months. These things take time. But mocking me doesn't. The hurt in my voice surprised even me. Marcus, I looked up to you. When everyone else said I was crazy for taking a non-profit job, for choosing this neighborhood, for wanting to live independently even if it meant sacrificing space, you supported me. Or at least I thought you did. His shoulders sagged. I do support you. Calling my apartment a sad little shoebox where dreams go to die is support. They were already making comments. I was trying to fit in. By throwing me under the bus. I shook my head. Do you know how hard I've worked for this place? I eat ramen 4 nights a week so I can afford the rent. I haven't bought new clothes in 6 months. I pick up freelance writing gigs until midnight just to make ends meet. This apartment represents everything I've sacrificed to be independent. Marcus looked genuinely stricken now. I didn't know it was that tight for you. Because you never asked. You were too busy creating your fake lifestyle to care about my real one. From the living room came the sound of laughter and conversation. Madison's voice carried over the music. They've been in there a while. Should we check on them? We need to get back out there, Marcus said urgently. Do we? Because I'm thinking this might be the perfect time to tell your friends the truth. Please don't. The desperation in his voice was raw. Madison and I just started dating. Tyler's considering me for a position at his firm. If they find out I've been lying about everything, then you'll face the consequences of your choices. Like an adult. Says the person who needed mommy and daddy to co-sign her lease. The words hit like a slap. Excuse me. Come on, Em. You think I don't know? Dad mentioned it at Sunday dinner 3 weeks ago. How proud he was that they could help you achieve your dreams by co-signing. My face burned. Yes, my parents had co-signed, my credit history was too thin for a lease this expensive on my own. But it was still my apartment, my responsibility, my monthly payments. At least I'm trying to build something real, I shot back. At least I'm not lying to everyone I care about. You want to talk about lying? What about that story you told Jess earlier about how you found this place through your amazing networking skills? Didn't mention that Mom's college friend works for the property management company and gave you the inside track, did you? My stomach dropped. How did he know about that? Mom told me, he continued, seeing my expression. She tells me lots of things. Like how worried she is about your finances. How you called her crying last month because your laptop died and you couldn't afford to replace it. How Dad secretly transferred you $800 to cover it because you were too proud to ask. Each word was a precision strike. My independent adult life suddenly felt like a house of cards, wobbling in the wind. That's different, I said weakly. Is it? We're both getting help from our parents, Em. The only difference is I'm honest about still figuring things out, while you're performing this whole, successful independent woman act. I'm not performing anything. Really? Then why didn't you tell anyone tonight that you're working 3 jobs to afford this place? Why not mention that you've been applying for better paying positions for 6 months with no luck? Why let everyone think you're thriving when you're barely surviving? The kitchen suddenly felt impossibly small. My perfect apartment, my symbol of independence, felt like it was shrinking around me. But then I heard Tyler's voice from the living room. Seriously though, when are we going to see this mysterious Belltown penthouse? And I remembered, whatever financial help I'd received, whatever struggles I was facing, I wasn't lying to everyone about my basic living situation. I wasn't performing a completely fictional life. You're right, I said quietly. I haven't been completely honest about how hard this is. But Marcus? I'm still actually living here. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but we were interrupted by Madison appearing in the kitchen doorway. Hey, sorry to interrupt, she said, her smile looking a bit forced. But Tyler just got a call about some emergency at work. Everyone's kind of thinking about heading out. Perfect timing. I needed this night to end before I said something I couldn't take back. Of course, I said, switching back to hostess mode. Let me grab some containers so people can take leftovers. As I bustled around my tiny kitchen, boxing up cheese and crackers, I caught Madison studying Marcus with a curious expression. She definitely picked up on the tension. The goodbyes were awkward. Tyler and Connor seemed oblivious, thanking me enthusiastically for the party and the wine. James made polite comments about the cozy space that somehow felt backhanded after what I'd overheard. Madison hugged me and whispered, your place is lovely, really, but kept glancing at Marcus like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Marcus lingered after everyone else left, helping me clear wine glasses with uncharacteristic helpfulness. About what I said in there. Don't. I stacked plates with more force than necessary. Just don't. I was defensive. You caught me off guard, and I lashed out. You think? I turned to face him. You know what the difference is between us, Marcus. When I'm struggling, I work harder. When you're struggling, you tear other people down to make yourself feel better. He flinched. That's not fair. Neither is calling my home pathetic while you're secretly living with our parents. I never called it pathetic. Sad little shoebox where dreams go to die. Your exact words. Marcus slumped against my counter, suddenly looking exhausted. The startup failure really messed me up, okay? I had investors, employees, people who believed in me. When it all fell apart, I lost everything. The apartment, the savings, the confidence. Moving back home was supposed to be temporary. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. So why not just tell people the truth? Your friends would understand. Would they? He laughed bitterly. Tyler's making 6 figures at his firm. Connor just bought a condo in Queen Anne. James is engaged to someone whose family owns half of Bellevue. And I'm the guy who crashed and burned before 30, sleeping in his parents' basement. So you thought mocking my actual success would make you feel better? I wasn't thinking. I was just trying to deflect attention from my own mess. He paused. But you're right. What I said was cruel and unfair. This place is actually pretty great. I looked around my apartment, seeing it through fresh eyes. The exposed brick I'd spent hours scrubbing. The vintage light fixtures I'd rewired myself. The carefully arranged furniture that maximized every square foot. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was mine. It is pretty great, I agreed. And I'm proud of it, even if I needed help to get here. Marcus nodded slowly. I should go. Madison's probably wondering why I'm not answering her texts. About Madison. I hesitated. She seems nice. Really nice. Don't you think she deserves honesty? I know. He grabbed his jacket from my closet. I'm just not ready for that conversation yet. When will you be ready? Because this web you're spinning is only getting more complicated. He didn't answer, just headed for the door. Thanks for the party, Em. And I'm sorry. Really. After he left, I sat on my love seat in the quiet apartment, surrounded by empty wine glasses and crumpled napkins. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Hope your party was wonderful, sweetheart. Dad and I can't wait to hear all about it at dinner Sunday. Marcus said he might bring someone special. I stared at that message for a long time. Sunday dinner. 3 days away. Where Marcus would probably continue his charade, and I'd have to sit there pretending I didn't know the truth. But what if I didn't have to pretend? I opened my laptop and started typing an email to my parents. Hi Mom and Dad, would it be okay if I invited a few friends to Sunday dinner? I'd love for you to meet some of the people from tonight. Including Madison, if I could manage it. My finger hovered over the send button. This would force Marcus's hand completely. No more lies, no more elaborate stories about his fictional Belltown life. The question was, did I want to be the one to blow up his world? I closed the laptop without sending the email. But I didn't delete the draft. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Marcus and a string of increasingly frantic texts. The last one, sent at 3:47 a.m., simply read, we need to talk. Emergency. I made coffee in my tiny kitchen, deliberately taking my time. Whatever crisis Marcus had manufactured could wait until I'd had caffeine and processed the emotional hangover from last night's revelations. My phone rang again. This time it was Mom. Honey, is everything okay? Her voice was tight with worry. Marcus called me at midnight asking if you were all right. He seemed very upset. I'm fine, Mom. The party went well. I settled into my reading nook with my mug, watching the morning light stream through those west-facing windows Marcus's friends had probably mocked. Did he say why he was concerned? Something about a misunderstanding between you two. He was quite worked up. She paused. Emily, you know you can talk to me if something's wrong, don't you? The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus had spent months lying to our parents about his living situation, but one uncomfortable conversation with me and suddenly he was calling them in the middle of the night. Everything's fine, I assured her. Just sibling stuff. After hanging up, I finally read through Marcus's text barrage. The progression was almost comical. 11:23 p.m. I know you're mad but we need to figure this out. 11:45 p.m. Madison keeps asking weird questions about Dad staying over. I told her he has insomnia and sometimes drives around at night. 12:18 a.m. That made it worse. Now she thinks Dad has a medical condition I'm not telling her about. 1:02 a.m. She wants to bring him homemade soup. To Mom and Dad's house. Because she thinks that's where I live now to take care of him. 1:33 a.m. This is spiraling. Call me. 2:15 a.m. Tyler texted asking for my building's address so he can look at units there. What am I supposed to tell him? 2:58 a.m. I think Connor's planning to surprise me at work and suggest we grab lunch in my neighborhood. The final text at 3:47 a.m. was just, I'm screwed. I had to admit, there was some poetic justice in watching Marcus's carefully constructed lies collapse under their own weight. But as I read through his panic, I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. I remembered being his age when my first post-college job fell through, how devastated and lost I'd felt. The difference was, I'd been honest about my struggles. My phone buzzed with a new message, but this time it wasn't from Marcus. It was Madison. Hi Emily. Thank you so much for last night, your apartment is absolutely lovely. I hope this isn't weird, but I was wondering if we could grab coffee sometime. I'd love to get to know Marcus's sister better. Also, I wanted to ask you something about your dad. Marcus mentioned he's been having some health issues. I'd love to help if there's anything I can do. I stared at the message, my coffee growing cold. Marcus had dug himself so deep that now his girlfriend thought our perfectly healthy father was sick and needed caregiving. The web of lies was expanding exponentially. Before I could respond, another text came in, this one from Tyler. Hey Emily. Great meeting you last night. Quick question, Marcus mentioned he lives in Belltown but I can't remember which building. I'm apartment hunting down there and would love to check out his place. Could you ask him for the address? Thanks. And then Connor, your brother is lucky to have found such a great spot in the city. My lease is up in 2 months and I'm thinking about Belltown. Any chance he'd let me crash on his couch for a weekend to get a feel for the neighborhood? 3 messages, 3 different people, all asking for information about Marcus's fictional apartment. Meanwhile, he was probably lying in his childhood twin bed, surrounded by participation trophies from high school cross country, having a complete meltdown. My phone rang. Marcus again. Thank God, he said when I answered. Have you checked your messages? Which ones? Yours from your 3 a.m. panic attack, or the ones from your friends asking about your imaginary apartment? This isn't funny, Em. Madison thinks Dad is dying. Tyler wants to tour my building. Connor wants to be roommates. And Mom just called asking why I sounded so upset about you last night. Wow, I said, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. It's almost like lies have consequences. I need your help. The desperation in his voice was palpable, but I wasn't feeling particularly generous after having my home mocked for an hour by his friends. Help with what, exactly? Maintaining your elaborate fiction. Creating fake building addresses. Hiring actors to play your doorman. I'm being serious. So am I, Marcus, you've created an impossible situation. You can't keep this up indefinitely. I know that, he snapped. But I can't just tell everyone I've been lying for 8 months either. Madison will dump me. Tyler will never take me seriously professionally. My entire social circle will think I'm a joke. As opposed to now, when you're definitely not a joke. Silence on the other end. I sighed, feeling the familiar tug of big sister responsibility despite everything. What exactly are you asking me to do? Help me buy some time. Maybe tell Madison that Dad's health issues are private, family business. Tell Tyler that I'm weird about people seeing my place because I'm renovating. Just, something to get them to back off until I can figure out a real solution. A real solution like actually getting your own apartment. Yes, eventually. But I can't afford first month, last month, and deposit right now. Not on top of paying Mom and Dad rent. Wait. I sat up straighter. You're paying rent to live in their basement? Of course I'm paying rent. I'm not a complete deadbeat. His voice was defensive. $400 a month plus groceries. It's not like I'm freeloading. $400. I paid nearly 5 times that for my studio apartment. Marcus, I said slowly, if you're only paying $400 in rent, why haven't you been saving up to get your own place? Another long pause. It's complicated. Uncomplicated. I still have debts from the startup. Credit cards I maxed out trying to keep the company afloat. I'm basically living paycheck to paycheck right now. Despite everything, I felt a genuine stab of sympathy. I knew what paycheck to paycheck felt like, I was living it too. The difference was, I wasn't lying about it while mocking other people's financial situations. I'll make you a deal, I said finally. I'll help you manage this crisis, for now. But in exchange, you're going to start being honest. With Madison, with your friends, and especially with yourself. I can't just. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them. I could hear him breathing on the other end, weighing his options. Okay, he said finally. But can we start with damage control? I need these immediate fires put out before I can think about the bigger picture. Fine. But Marcus? This is the last time I'm covering for you. After this, you're on your own. Understood. I hung up and stared at my phone, already regretting my decision to help. But maybe, if I played this right, I could use his desperation to my advantage. After all, I still had that unsent email draft sitting in my laptop. I spent the next hour crafting carefully worded responses to Marcus's friends, each one designed to buy him time while subtly undermining his story. To Madison, I wrote about Dad's private health matters that the family preferred not to discuss. To Tyler, I mentioned Marcus's extensive renovations that made visits impossible right now. To Connor, I explained that Marcus was particular about his space and didn't like having overnight guests. Each message felt like I was digging myself deeper into Marcus's web of lies, but I had a plan. My phone buzzed with a response from Madison. Of course, I completely understand about family privacy. But please know I'm here if you need anything. Also, I hope this isn't overstepping, but I've been researching specialists who deal with sleep disorders and cognitive issues in older adults. I'd be happy to share what I found. I screenshot the message and sent it to Marcus with a single word, yikes. His response was immediate, she's Googling dementia doctors. What do I do? Before I could answer, my laptop chimed with a new email. My heart stopped when I saw the sender, David Chen from the Seattle Environmental Coalition. I'd interviewed with them 6 weeks ago for a program coordinator position that would have doubled my salary. Dear Emily, the email began, thank you for your patience during our extended hiring process. I'm pleased to offer you the position of Senior Program Coordinator, starting November 15th, at a salary of $68,000 annually. I read the email 3 times before it sank in. $68,000. More than enough to afford my apartment without sacrificing groceries. Enough to pay back my parents for the laptop. Enough to stop lying awake at night calculating utilities down to the penny. My hands shook as I called the number in David's signature line. Emily. Congratulations, David's voice was warm when he picked up. I hope you're as excited as we are. Absolutely, I managed. This is incredible news. I accept. Wonderful. I know the timeline is tight, just 2 weeks, but we're eager to get started on the climate education initiative you proposed. Your background in grassroots organizing really set you apart from other candidates. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence in my beautiful, tiny apartment. Everything was about to change. I wouldn't need my parents' financial safety net anymore. I could afford to live here comfortably, maybe even save money for the first time since college. My phone rang, jarring me from my thoughts. Marcus again. Madison just sent me a list of neurologists, he said without preamble. Apparently she's done some research and thinks Dad should be evaluated for early onset Alzheimer's. She wants to drive out to Mom and Dad's house this weekend to assess his living environment for safety hazards. I almost laughed. She wants to inspect our childhood home for dementia-proofing. This isn't funny. If she shows up there and sees my car in the driveway, sees all my stuff in the basement, the whole thing falls apart. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing. Easy for you to say. You just got that promotion you've been wanting. I froze. How do you know about that? Mom called me after you called her. She's over the moon about your new job. Of course I'd called Mom first. Old habits. The point is, Marcus continued, things are looking up for you. Meanwhile, my entire life is about to implode because of one stupid lie that got out of hand. One lie. Marcus, you've been constructing an alternate reality for 8 months. I know, okay. I know. But I can't undo it now. Madison's already talking about meeting my parents. She wants to support the family during this difficult time. She's planning to bring groceries and probably wants to discuss Dad's care plan with Mom. The irony was almost beautiful. Marcus's fictional sick father story was about to force a meeting between his girlfriend and our parents, the very thing he'd been desperately avoiding. When is this supposed to happen? Sunday. She suggested coming to family dinner to help out and meet everyone properly. Sunday. Mom's birthday dinner, where I'd already been considering my nuclear option. You know what, Marcus? I think that's perfect. Perfect. Are you insane? She'll figure everything out the second she sees the house set up. Maybe. Or maybe this is exactly the push you need to finally tell the truth. Please. I'm begging you. Help me figure out how to redirect this. Maybe suggest she wait a few weeks. Tell her the family needs time to process Dad's diagnosis. I looked around my apartment, my expensive, beautiful, financially precarious apartment that I'd been killing myself to afford. In 2 weeks, this place would feel completely different. Spacious instead of cramped. Cozy instead of desperate. Marcus had spent months mocking my struggle while hiding his own failure. Now he was panicking because his elaborate lies were finally catching up to him. I'll help you, I said finally. But on one condition. Name it. Sunday dinner happens exactly as Madison planned. She comes to meet the family. No redirecting, no delays, no last-minute emergencies to cancel. Are you trying to destroy me? I'm trying to save you from yourself. Sometimes the only way out is through. The line went quiet except for Marcus's shallow breathing. If I do this, he said finally, if I let her come to dinner, will you help me figure out how to tell her the truth beforehand? I'll help you tell everyone the truth, I corrected. Madison, Tyler, Connor, all of them. Clean slate. And you won't say anything to Mom and Dad before Sunday? I hesitated. I won't volunteer information. But Marcus, if they ask me directly about something, I won't lie for you. Fair enough. His voice sounded hollow. God, this is going to be a disaster. Maybe. But as I looked at David's job offer email still open on my laptop, I couldn't help thinking that some disasters were exactly what we needed. The rest of the week passed in a surreal blur of damage control and mounting dread. Marcus called me every few hours with updates on his increasingly elaborate attempts to manage the situation. Madison had apparently spent Tuesday researching family caregiver support groups and Wednesday shopping for brain-healthy groceries she planned to bring to Sunday dinner. Tyler had driven through Belltown during lunch, trying to spot Marcus's building based on his vague descriptions, and texted a photo of a random high-rise asking if this was the one. Connor had started looking at studio apartments online, sending Marcus listings with messages like, these could work if you ever want a roommate. By Friday afternoon, I was seriously reconsidering my decision to let this play out naturally. The web of complications had grown so tangled that I wasn't sure the truth would even be believable at this point. My phone buzzed with yet another Marcus crisis text. Madison wants to bring her friend who's a physical therapist to assess Dad's mobility issues. She's concerned about fall risks in a 2-story house. I was sitting in my soon-to-be former office, cleaning out my desk during my lunch break, when I decided enough was enough. I called him immediately. She wants to bring a medical professional to evaluate our perfectly healthy father for mobility issues that don't exist, I said without preamble. Do you understand how insane this has gotten? I know. I told her it might be overwhelming for Dad to meet too many new people at once. Bought myself some time, but she's getting suspicious about why I'm being so protective. Because you've painted yourself into an impossible corner. I shoved my desk plant into a cardboard box with more force than necessary. Marcus, she's going to figure it out Sunday no matter what. The question is whether you tell her beforehand or let her discover it in front of our entire family. What if we just cancel dinner? Told Mom that Dad's having a bad day? Absolutely not. I already told Mom that I'm excited to introduce her to my brother's girlfriend. She's been planning this menu for 3 days. You told Mom about Madison. His voice pitched higher. Why would you do that? Because normal people don't hide their relationships from their families. I paused, realizing something. Wait, how long have you two been dating? About 6 weeks. And you haven't mentioned her to mom and dad at all? Silence. Marcus. They think you're single, don't they? They have no idea you're seeing someone. It just never came up. I almost dropped my box of office supplies. Never came up. You call mom every morning during your fake commute. You have dinner there every Sunday. You live in their basement. How does a girlfriend never come up? Because if I tell them about Madison, they'll want to meet her. And if they want to meet her, she'll want to come over. And if she comes over, she'll see that you live there. Right. I set the box down and rubbed my temples. So not only have you been lying to Madison about where you live, you've been lying to our parents about having a girlfriend at all. When you put it like that, it sounds worse than it is. How could it possibly sound worse than it is? My computer chimed with an email from Mom. Sweetheart, I'm so excited to meet Marcus's friend on Sunday. Should I make extra of everything? Does she have any dietary restrictions? I want this to be perfect since it's my birthday dinner and the first time we're meeting someone special to one of my children. Dad's already planning to break out the good wine. I forwarded the email to Marcus without comment. His response came back immediately. She said, someone special. They're going to think Madison is my girlfriend. She is your girlfriend. But they don't know that. They're going to ask her all sorts of questions about our relationship, and she's going to mention the Belltown apartment, and they're going to be confused because they know I live with them, and the whole thing is going to explode. I stared at my phone, momentarily speechless at the complexity of the disaster Marcus had created. He wasn't just juggling two different lies, he was juggling two completely separate identities. Madison knew him as a successful, independent guy with his own place who was dealing with a family health crisis. Our parents knew him as their struggling son who'd moved back home temporarily but was getting back on his feet. Neither version of Marcus could coexist in the same room. You have 48 hours, I said finally. Figure it out. But as I hung up and returned to packing my desk, I realized that part of me didn't want him to figure it out. Part of me wanted to watch his house of cards collapse spectacularly in front of everyone. He'd spent months making me feel small about my achievements while hiding his own failures. Maybe it was time for a little poetic justice. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Hi Emily. Quick question, should I bring anything besides groceries on Sunday? I know your mom is cooking, but I'd love to contribute. Also, do you think she'd be open to discussing some resources I found for families dealing with cognitive decline? I don't want to overstep, but I really want to help. I stared at the message, my stomach twisting with an unexpected pang of guilt. Madison seemed genuinely sweet and caring. She was trying to help a family deal with a crisis that didn't exist, planning to support a man through health issues he didn't have. When the truth came out, she wasn't just going to be angry about Marcus's lies, she was going to be humiliated about all the medical research and good intentions that had been completely misdirected. For the first time since this whole mess started, I wondered if my plan for Sunday was going to hurt more than just Marcus. Saturday morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with an incoming call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Emily. This is Madison. Her voice sounded strained, different from the bubbly tone I'd gotten used to. I hope it's okay that I got your number from Marcus's phone. I really need to talk to someone. I sat up in bed, instantly alert. Is everything okay? That's what I'm trying to figure out. She paused, and I could hear traffic in the background. I'm sitting outside what Marcus told me was his building in Belltown, and Emily, no one here has ever heard of him. My blood went cold. What do you mean? I wanted to surprise him with coffee this morning before we drove to your parents together. He gave me this address months ago, 2150, Western Avenue, Unit 1847. But the doorman has worked here for 3 years and swears no one named Marcus Chen has ever lived in this building. He even checked the resident directory going back 5 years. I closed my eyes, feeling the last threads of Marcus's story unraveling in real time. Of course he'd given her a fake address. Of course he'd made up a unit number. And of course she'd eventually tried to visit. Madison, There's more. Her voice was getting tighter. I called Marcus 20 minutes ago to ask about the mix-up, and he said he was already at your parents' house helping with dinner prep. But Emily, it's 8:30 a.m. on a Saturday. What kind of dinner prep takes all day? And why would he sleep over there if his dad is the one with health problems? I could practically hear her putting the pieces together. Madison was clearly smarter than Marcus had given her credit for. I think, she continued slowly, I think Marcus might actually live with your parents. Like, live with them. And if that's true, then why has he been lying to me for 6 weeks about having his own place? The question hung in the air between us. I had about 10 seconds to decide whether to cover for my brother one more time or let Madison figure out the truth on her own. Madison, I said carefully, I think you should ask Marcus these questions directly. I tried. He's not answering his phone now. Her voice cracked slightly. Emily, I've been researching dementia specialists for your dad. I bought $200 worth of brain-healthy groceries yesterday. I've been planning how to help your family through what I thought was a medical crisis. If Marcus has been lying about where he lives, what else has he been lying about? The guilt hit me like a physical blow. This sweet, caring woman had spent weeks researching treatments for a disease our father didn't have, preparing to support a family through a tragedy that was completely fictional. I'm coming to dinner tomorrow, Madison said, her tone shifting from hurt to determined. I want to meet your parents and see for myself what's really going on. If Marcus is living there, if your dad is actually sick, if any of this makes sense. Will you tell me the truth if I ask you directly? I thought about my promise to Marcus, about family loyalty, about the difference between keeping someone's secrets and enabling their self-destruction. Yes, I said finally. If you ask me directly tomorrow, I'll tell you the truth. Thank you. The relief in her voice was palpable. Emily. Is your dad actually sick? You'll have to wait until tomorrow for that answer. After we hung up, I immediately called Marcus. It went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times with the same result. Finally, I texted, Madison knows about the fake address. She's still coming to dinner. You have 24 hours to figure out how to handle this. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. Honey, is your brother okay? He showed up here at dawn looking like he hadn't slept, and now he's stress cleaning the basement like a madman. He won't tell me what's wrong. I looked out my apartment window at the Seattle skyline, thinking about how much everything was about to change. Tomorrow would either force Marcus to finally grow up, or it would destroy his relationship and possibly our family's trust in him forever. I think he's just nervous about you meeting Madison, I said. Well, he should be excited, not terrified. I've never seen him this worked up about anything. Neither had I. And despite everything he put me through, I was starting to worry about how spectacular tomorrow's explosion was going to be. My phone buzzed at 6:47 a.m. Sunday morning with a text from Marcus, emergency family meeting before Madison arrives. Coming to get you at 8. I was already awake, nursing my second cup of coffee and staring at my closet like the clothes inside might somehow provide guidance for the impending disaster. I'd barely slept, alternating between feeling guilty about letting this spiral so far and anticipating the satisfaction of watching Marcus's lies finally catch up with him. Absolutely not, I texted back. I'm not getting pulled into some last-minute damage control scheme. My phone rang immediately. Please. I need your help to figure out how to tell everyone the truth before Madison gets there. His voice was ragged, like he'd been up all night. I can't let her walk into Mom's birthday dinner and discover everything in front of the whole family. You should have thought of that 6 weeks ago when you started dating her. I know, okay? I know I screwed up. But she deserves better than finding out like this. Mom deserves better than having her birthday ruined by my mess. And honestly, you deserve better than watching your brother get completely humiliated. I paused, struck by the genuine remorse in his voice. This was the first time since the housewarming party that Marcus had acknowledged how his choices affected other people. What exactly are you proposing? Come over early. Help me tell Mom and Dad about Madison and the lies before she arrives. Then when she gets here at 2 p.m., I'll take her aside privately and explain everything. Clean slate before dinner. And if they're furious? If Mom spends her entire birthday dealing with family drama instead of celebrating? Then I'll face the consequences. But at least it won't be a complete ambush. Against my better judgment, I found myself considering it. Madison's voice from yesterday kept echoing in my head, the hurt and confusion when she'd realized the address was fake. She really did seem to care about Marcus, and she'd been genuinely trying to help our family through what she thought was a medical crisis. Fine, I said. But I'm not covering for you or softening the blow. You tell them everything, exactly as it happened. Deal. I'll pick you up in an hour. The drive to our parents' house in Maple Valley was tense and quiet. Marcus gripped the steering wheel like his life depended on it, and I could see dark circles under his eyes that suggested he'd spent the night in full panic mode. How much does Dad actually know about your financial situation? I asked as we turned into the familiar neighborhood where we'd both grown up. He knows about the startup failure and the debts. He doesn't know I've been lying to everyone about living independently. Marcus pulled into the driveway, parking next to Dad's ancient Honda Civic. He thinks I'm staying here temporarily while I save up for a better place. And the fake girlfriend story? They're going to be blindsided by that part. He turned off the engine and sat back with a heavy sigh. God, what if Madison breaks up with me over this? For the first time in days, I felt a genuine stab of sympathy for him. If she does, it'll be because you lied to her for 6 weeks, not because you live with our parents. I know the lying was wrong. But the living situation, it's embarrassing. She's got her own condo in Queen Anne, a great job at a marketing firm, her whole life together. I'm 28 years old sleeping in my childhood bedroom. Marcus. I turned to face him fully. Do you actually like her, or do you just like how successful she makes you feel? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the house where we both learned to ride bikes and had our first heartbreaks and fought over bathroom time every morning before school. I really like her, he said finally. That's what makes this so terrifying. If I'd just been honest from the beginning. Then you'd know whether she liked the real you or just the version you created. The front door opened and Mom appeared on the porch, wearing her favorite apron and waving at us with a huge smile. She looked so happy and excited about her birthday dinner, completely unaware that her son was about to confess to months of elaborate deception. Ready? Marcus asked, unbuckling his seatbelt. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw not the confident finance bro who'd mocked my apartment, but the scared kid who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. Ready, I said. As we walked up the familiar front path, I caught sight of Marcus's BMW parked behind the garage, half hidden by Mom's garden shed. He'd been parking it back there for months, I realized, so neighbors wouldn't see it in the driveway every single day and figure out that he'd never actually moved out. Even his car was part of the lie. This was going to be a very long day. Mom's kitchen smelled like cinnamon and rosemary, the familiar sense of her birthday tradition, homemade dinner rolls and herb-crusted pork tenderloin. She bustled around us, pulling dishes from the oven and chattering excitedly about finally meeting Marcus's friend. I made extra potatoes just in case, she said, kissing both our cheeks. You know how I worry about having enough food. And Emily, honey, I'm so proud of you for suggesting this. It's been too long since we've had someone new for Sunday dinner. Dad looked up from the newspaper at the kitchen table, reading glasses perched on his nose. Your mother's been cooking since yesterday. I think she's made enough food for 12 people. It's my birthday dinner and I'm meeting my future daughter-in-law, Mom said with a laugh. A girl can't be too prepared. Marcus and I exchanged glances. Future daughter-in-law. This was going to be even worse than I'd anticipated. Mom, Dad, Marcus said, his voice tight. Can we sit down for a minute? I need to talk to you about some things before Madison gets here. Madison. What a pretty name. Mom wiped her hands on her apron. Is everything all right? You look pale, sweetheart. Dad folded his newspaper, suddenly alert. This sounds serious. We settled around the kitchen table, the same one where we'd eaten breakfast every morning for 18 years, where Marcus had announced his acceptance to college, where I told them about my first job offer. The afternoon light streaming through Mom's lace curtains felt deceptively peaceful. The first thing you need to know, Marcus began, is that Madison and I have been dating for 6 weeks. She's my girlfriend. Mom's face lit up. A girlfriend. Marcus, that's wonderful. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Because I haven't exactly been honest with her about my living situation, he said quietly. She thinks I have my own apartment in Belltown. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Dad removed his reading glasses and cleaned them slowly, a sure sign he was processing something unpleasant. I see, Mom said finally, her excitement deflating. And why would you tell her that? Because I was embarrassed about living here. And then the lie got bigger, and I couldn't figure out how to take it back without losing her. How much bigger? Dad's voice had taken on the stern tone I remembered from childhood lectures. Marcus swallowed hard. She thinks you have early-stage dementia, Dad. She's been researching specialists and buying brain-healthy groceries. She thinks I moved back home to take care of you. The kitchen went dead silent except for the tick of Mom's antique wall clock. I watched my parents' faces cycle through confusion, hurt, and something that looked like disappointment. She thinks I'm sick. Dad said slowly. Son, why on earth would you? It started as damage control when she asked why I call Em every morning from here. I panicked and said you had insomnia and needed support. Then she kept asking questions and being so caring about it, and I kept making it worse. Mom sank back in her chair, looking stunned. Marcus, honey, this girl has spent weeks worrying about our family. She's probably been agonizing over how to help us through what she thinks is a terrible diagnosis. I know. His voice cracked. I know how awful this is. That's why I wanted to tell you before she gets here. I'm going to explain everything to her privately when she arrives. What time is she coming? I asked, checking my phone. It was already 12:30 p.m. 2 o'clock, Marcus said. She's driving straight here from Belltown after he stopped mid-sentence, his face going white. Oh God. Oh no. What? Dad demanded. She went to my fake address yesterday morning. She knows I don't live there. She's been sitting with this information for over 24 hours, probably piecing everything together. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced down and felt my stomach drop. Madison, change of plans. I'm in your parents' driveway right now. We need to talk. The color drained from Marcus's face as I read the text aloud. Through the kitchen window, we could see Madison's silver Honda parked at the curb, but she wasn't getting out. She was just sitting there, probably gathering courage for whatever confrontation she'd planned. She's early, Mom said unnecessarily, her voice tight with anxiety. She's not early, I corrected, watching Madison finally open her car door. She's done waiting for answers. Marcus shot up from his chair so fast it scraped against the hardwood floor. I need to go talk to her before she comes in. Explain everything privately like we planned. Absolutely not, Dad said firmly. You've done enough explaining in private. That young woman deserves the truth, and she deserves it from all of us. Through the window, I watched Madison walk up our front path with determined steps. She was wearing a navy blue dress and carrying what looked like a casserole dish, probably some brain-healthy meal she prepared for our supposedly ailing father. The sight of her bringing food for a sick man who wasn't actually sick made my chest tight with secondhand guilt. The doorbell rang. I'll get it, Mom said, smoothing her apron and putting on her hostess smile despite everything. Whatever mess you've created, Marcus, we're going to handle this with dignity. But before Mom could reach the front door, we heard it open. Madison's voice carried down the hallway. Hello. Mrs. Chen. It's Madison. I hope it's okay that I'm using my key. All four of us froze. Key? What key? Dad whispered. Marcus looked like he might faint. I gave her the spare key from under the flower pot last week. Told her it was for emergencies, in case something happened with your health and I couldn't get here fast enough. You gave your fake girlfriend a key to our house to help with my fake dementia. Dad's voice was barely controlled. Madison appeared in the kitchen doorway before anyone could answer, still holding the casserole dish. Her eyes swept the room, taking in our family meeting tableau, and I watched her expression shift from nervous determination to confused hurt. Well, she said quietly, this is awkward. Mom recovered first, her manners kicking in despite the circumstances. Madison, dear, please come in. We were just having a family meeting about me. Madison set the casserole dish on the counter with more force than necessary. I figured as much when I saw all your cars in the driveway. Her gaze landed on Marcus, and I could see 6 weeks of mounting suspicions crystallizing into certainty. So, should I start, or do you want to explain why you've been lying to me about literally everything? Madison, let me, Marcus began. Let you what? Lie some more. She turned to Dad, who was sitting completely still at the kitchen table. Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I have to ask directly. Are you suffering from dementia or any cognitive decline? Dad looked at Marcus, then back at Madison. No, dear. I'm perfectly healthy. Madison nodded slowly, like she'd been expecting that answer but it still stung to hear. And Marcus doesn't live in Belltown, does he? He lives here, in your house. In the basement, Mom said gently. He's been staying with us for about 8 months now. 8 months. Madison's laugh was bitter. We've been dating for 6 weeks, and he's been lying about where he lives for our entire relationship. She looked around the kitchen, taking in the family photos on the refrigerator, the stack of mail addressed to Marcus on the counter, the obvious signs of long-term residence. Is there anything at all, that you've told me the truth about? Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. For once in his life, my silver-tongued brother was completely speechless. I really like Thai food, he said finally, weakly. Madison stared at him for a long moment, then turned to me. Emily, yesterday you said you'd tell me the truth if I asked directly. So I'm asking. How long have you known about all of this? The kitchen went silent except for the timer on Mom's oven, which chose that moment to start beeping insistently. None of us moved to turn it off. I looked at Marcus, who was watching me with desperate, pleading eyes. Then I looked at Madison, who deserved so much better than what she'd been given. I found out a week ago, I said. At my housewarming party. Madison's face went through several emotions at once, relief that I hadn't been lying to her for weeks, hurt that I'd kept Marcus's secret even briefly, and something that looked like respect for my honesty. A week ago, she repeated. At your party, where Marcus was mocking your apartment while secretly living in his parents' basement. I nodded, feeling heat creep up my neck. I overheard him and his friends talking about my place. Calling it pathetic, saying I was playing house in a shoebox. While he was what, exactly? Playing successful adult. Madison's voice was getting sharper. God, Marcus, do you understand how humiliating this is? I've been Googling early signs of Alzheimer's and researching memory care facilities. I bought your dad a $40 supplement that's supposed to improve cognitive function. She gestured toward the casserole dish she brought. That's a salmon and quinoa bake specifically designed to support brain health. I spent 3 hours making it yesterday because I wanted to help your family through what I thought was a devastating diagnosis. Mom's timer was still beeping insistently in the background, creating an almost surreal soundtrack to Madison's breakdown of everything Marcus had put her through. The worst part, Madison continued, her voice cracking slightly, isn't even the lying. It's that you made me fall for someone who doesn't exist. The Marcus I've been dating is confident and independent and has his life together. He lives in this amazing downtown apartment and calls his sister every morning during his commute to work. He's close with his family but doesn't need them to take care of him. She turned to look directly at Marcus, and I could see tears starting to form in her eyes. But that person isn't real, is he? The real Marcus lives in his parents' basement and mocks his sister for actually being independent. The real Marcus creates elaborate medical emergencies to explain away phone calls he makes while eating breakfast at his mother's kitchen table. Madison, please, Marcus finally found his voice. Please what? Please forgive you for making me research specialists for a disease your father doesn't have. Please understand why you've been performing an entirely fictional life for 6 weeks. Dad cleared his throat, his voice gentle but firm. Madison, I think you should know that Marcus has been paying rent and helping around the house. This isn't a failure to launch situation. He had some business setbacks and needed time to get back on his feet financially. Thank you, Mr. Chin, but that's not the point. Madison wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I wouldn't have cared if Marcus lived with you. I wouldn't have cared if he was struggling financially. What I can't handle is that he thought so little of me, of us, that he created this elaborate fantasy instead of just telling me the truth. The oven timer finally stopped beeping as Mom got up to check on her dinner rolls, moving through the kitchen like she was walking through a minefield. Madison, I said carefully, what are you going to do now? She looked around the kitchen one more time, taking in the family calendar on the wall with Marcus's name written in for every Sunday dinner, the stack of his laundry folded neatly on the counter, the spare phone charger plugged in next to the coffee maker. I'm going to leave, she said simply. And Marcus, I'm going to need some time to figure out if there's anything real enough between us to salvage after this. How much time? Marcus asked desperately. Madison picked up her purse and headed toward the kitchen doorway. I honestly don't know. Maybe a few days, maybe forever. I need to figure out who you actually are before I can decide if I want to keep dating you. She paused at the threshold and turned back to Mom. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry for intruding on your birthday dinner. I hope you have a wonderful celebration with your family. After Madison left, the kitchen felt eerily quiet. Mom stood by the oven, still holding her oven mitts. Dad remained seated at the table, staring at his folded newspaper. Marcus slumped against the counter like all the air had gone out of him. Well, Mom said finally, breaking the silence. I suppose we should still have birthday dinner. The pork tenderloin isn't going to cook itself. But I could see in her eyes that the celebration she'd been looking forward to was effectively ruined, and Marcus could see it too. 3 months later, I was unpacking boxes in my new one-bedroom apartment in Fremont, an upgrade made possible by my job at the Seattle Environmental Coalition, when Marcus knocked on my door. It's open, I called, wrestling with a particularly stubborn piece of packing tape. He walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee from the place downstairs and a small wrapped box. Congratulations on the new place. It's incredible. Thanks. I accepted the coffee gratefully. The apartment really was incredible, hardwood floors, a real kitchen with actual counter space, and windows that faced both east and west. More importantly, I could afford it comfortably without eating ramen every night. Madison and I broke up, he said without preamble, settling on my new couch. Officially, I mean. We'd been trying to work through everything, but last week she said she couldn't get past the lying. Not just to her, but to everyone. I studied my brother's face. He looked tired, but not devastated in the way I'd expected. How are you handling it? Better than I thought I would, honestly. She was right, she fell for someone who didn't exist. And I was so busy maintaining that fiction that I never figured out who I actually wanted to be. Marcus took a sip of his coffee and gestured around my apartment. The weird thing is, after everything fell apart, I realized how much I'd been projecting my own insecurities onto you. This place, your independence, your job, I was jealous. It was easier to call your apartment pathetic than admit that you were braver than me. You were jealous of my 450 square foot studio. I sat down across from him, genuinely surprised. I was jealous that you were actually living your life instead of performing one. He set down his coffee and leaned forward. You took risks. You prioritized what mattered to you over what looked impressive to other people. Even when money was tight, even when it meant asking for help sometimes, you were building something real. The admission hung between us. 3 months ago, those words would have meant everything to me. Now, in my beautiful new apartment with my stable job and growing savings account, they just felt like something that should have been said a long time ago. I got my own place, Marcus continued. A 1-bedroom in Ballard. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. And I told Tyler, Connor, and James the truth about everything. Lost some friends, but the ones who stuck around, they're better friends than I had before. He handed me the wrapped box. This is for you. A housewarming gift for both your apartments, I guess. Inside was a small framed photo from our childhood, the 2 of us building a blanket fort in our parents' living room, probably around ages 8 and 10. We're both grinning at the camera, covered in dust and completely proud of our architectural masterpiece. I found it when I was finally cleaning out the basement, Marcus said. Remember how we used to plan elaborate construction projects? You always insisted on making them structurally sound while I just wanted them to look impressive. I traced the frame with my finger, remembering. Some things never change. Some things do, though. Marcus stood up, checking his watch. I have a date tonight, actually. Her name's Sarah, she's a teacher, and she knows I live in a modest apartment in Ballard and drive a 10-year-old Honda Civic. Revolutionary concept, honesty in dating. I'm a slow learner. He headed toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Both versions of your apartment were pretty great, but this one suits you better. After he left, I placed the photo on my mantelpiece next to a picture from my housewarming party, the real one I'd thrown a month later, where people genuinely celebrated my new space and no one called it pathetic behind my back. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Heard about your new place from Riley. Would love to catch up over coffee sometime if you're interested. I miss having a chin sibling who tells the truth, smiling face with smiling eyes. I looked around my apartment, my real, honest, hard-earned apartment, and smiled. Some stories don't end with revenge or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes they end with everyone finally growing up enough to build something genuine instead of performing something impressive. And sometimes, that's the most satisfying ending of all.